Hey, good morning. Oh, wait a minute. I'm muted. There we go.
I can hear you.
Technology. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Oh my gosh. Good thing, I've got 20 plus years of tech experience. Otherwise, I would be in a frantic, right? Good morning, Heather, and
Good
welcome to the
morning.
welcome to the Yes Show. How's everybody? Say Yes Show. How's everybody doing this morning? For those of you that are listening in and watching us live, hey, thank you for jumping in here. Heather, how's it going for you today?
It's going really good. It's the weather is a little bit colder and I'm dressed warm and cozy, so it actually feels good to celebrate the changing of the season. So I'm feeling good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. Single digit weather to me, I get cold very easily. So, and I, I guess somebody's calling and reaching out. Hey, do you want to join the conversation? Absolutely. Um, the change of weather is always an interesting time because it makes me think about actually like the fall, right? Like, I don't know about you, but in my household, we do chestnuts. Do you eat chestnuts? Roasted
No,
chestnuts?
no.
Oh my gosh. Oh
In
man,
fact, I used to hear that in this song. I'm like, roasted chestnuts. What is that?
oh no, yeah, it's not just Christmas carols that have roasted chestnuts. So tradition in my household, and actually when my mom was alive, the one thing we would do fall, because fall is the time for chestnuts, right? If you go to the grocery stores, I don't know what happened, but they're now like $8 a pound. Kind of got a little bit crazy, but chestnuts were the things that brought us together. And actually, Heather, if you want to try something new and different, chestnuts and wine. For those of you that are watching, if you've had chestnuts, drop it. Let me know if you've had. Give me a one for a yes or a two for a no. But let me know if you've had chestnuts. Chestnuts and wine go so well together.
Okay. Maybe
Delicious.
I have it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so there's different ways of roasting chestnuts, right? You can cut them, put them in the oven. You can boil them, put them in the oven, or you can just boil them and eat them boiled. So there's a variety of different ways to eat chestnuts. I know we're talking about chestnuts today,
I love it.
um, but it's the fall, right? The
It's
fall
the
is all
fall.
about There's new experiences that happen in the fall, and these are the patterns and the routines and the things that I grew up with in the fall. And actually, my wife's she loves chestnuts as well. And we take our Friday or Saturday night, we roast them, and then with a glass of wine, watching a movie, we eat chestnuts.
I
So
love
good,
that. That's
so good.
fantastic. I
Yeah,
find that
yeah,
when the season changes, though, I don't know if you find this, John, but my routine doesn't stay the same. The sun's not up as early. It's
mm.
easier to stay in bed. Are you having some of those same challenges, sort of just out the gate? And I thought maybe we could talk about success patterns or what's not successful these days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're right. So typically I get up, I do my exercise first thing in the morning. I got up this morning and one of my routines as I go through the kitchen and grab my stuff, my water, is I open up my drapes, like my little blinds, right? And it's like I open them, I'm like, it's still dark outside. I'm like, what's the point of opening up my curtains, my drapes? But yeah, no, even and here I want to be vulnerable with all of you for a second. The truth is, I do sit in bed for an extra 5 minutes because it's like you put that first foot on the floor and it's like but the one thing there's this mantra we talk about success routines, right? The one thing that I repeat constantly as I'm waking up is I am much more than I seem to be. All the world's power and strength is within me. And
Mm.
that's one of the mantras that I use every morning. And actually, I added another one. I am much more than I seem to be. All the world's power and strength and action sits in me. So, it's all about, how I want to set up my day for success. And one of the things that I've learned, one of the patterns that I've learned from several teachers, even when you're saying yes, you're putting in tools and mechanisms in place to get you to that yes.
Yeah.
And that little saying, that little expression, I am much more than I seem to be. All the world's power, strength, and action resides in me. That gets me out of bed. And
I
even
love
though I want
that.
to be,
Now
yeah,
I feel inadequate, John, because all I say is good morning to my puppy in a puppy voice, and that's it. So maybe I
yeah,
can
no,
see a more success pattern. Maybe we'll put that in the chat afterwards so that people, if they want to take that same mantra and borrow it.
yeah, no. I learned it years ago from a friend's dad of mine in Montreal. And he goes, if you want to start off your day right, you got to do it this way. You got to say this to yourself first thing in the morning. I would turn over and say good morning to my dogs, but they're passed out, right? Like they don't wake up with me. They just look at me, their eyes pop open. It's like, what are you doing? Like it's way too early. Like, and they stay. They don't even move. But yeah, no, that like that little thing, right? And I think about saying yes to my workouts in the morning. And yes, as we go into the fall, it gets even more challenging and more difficult, right? It's like, man, who doesn't want to just be curled up underneath the sheets for an extra, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Like, I'll stay under the sheets for an extra 5, but I'm like, I gotta go do this today. This is, you know, the sequence of things that I need to do throughout my day to put me into a good state to get me to yes. That's part of it, right? What about
Mm.
yourself? So outside of, say good morning to your dog, what other success routine do you have for yourself to get
Yeah.
yourself to a yes state?
I find that having a regular routine, and even on the weekends, of what time I go to bed, what time
Mm.
I wake up. Before it was like, oh, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to sleep in, I'm going to stay in bed late. And that just doesn't serve me anymore. It really
Mm.
matters what time you start your day and then how do you get moving. And it's funny that you say you open the blinds because that's actually an activity that I do as well. It like today, I'm leaving right after this call to head back to Toronto. So I haven't opened my blinds and it's actually bothering me because my routine
Mm.
got messed up. And it's just a silly thing, but it lets the sunshine in, it signals a new day. I love the sound of just opening them. That is such a weird thing we have in common, which I think is funny because you were just telling me a few days ago how finding things that are in common with someone makes you feel more connected. And really, blinds, that's what we have.
It's funny you say that because we all have at least 3 things in common with people around us. And who knew opening blinds first thing in the morning was, and I'll tell you the truth. It wasn't a thing that I used to do for myself, right? Getting into the summer, my wife, she loves to come downstairs and she loves light, like natural sunlight coming into the house, right? So she come down and she's like, "You didn't open the blinds yet?" I'm like, "No, I didn't open the blinds." And then a few of those, it's like, okay, I got to start opening the blinds because I'm up before everybody else, right? So I got into that habit, and it's been it to me, it's what signifies this is the start of my day. I open up the blinds, I grab my water, I do a multivitamin shot, and then I go do my exercise. Like that's my routine. Even if I'm stepping out of the house to go to the gym, that's my routine. I'll kind
Yeah.
of do that, and it's also to make sure that my house is safe, right? Like it's just making sure everything's good, everything is where it's supposed to be, and all that stuff, right? But yeah, like who
It's
knew? But
it's the
we have at
routines.
least 3.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
sorry, I was talking about the routines, but you go for the 3 things in common. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah, I know. And what I learned, and I was talking about this on Monday, we have at least 3 things in common with everybody around us, right? So, just something to be aware of. And, surprisingly, I'm like, what else do we have in common? Uh, we'll have to explore that as we go into these other calls and do these other things. But for those of you that are watching, and I can see you, you're there. Good morning. If you can, just drop in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from, where you're watching from. Last week we had Singapore, we had New Brunswick, we had different places in it across the country and around the world. So if you are in a warm, exotic, hot place, let us know. We want to hear about it. So Heather, so what else? So we talked about routines. So what other routines? What other success routines do you have for yourself to get into a place of action? Because I think that's important.
Yeah, I have this really bad habit that I borrowed from my dad of getting excited about to-do lists. And
Mm.
I'll write them out and then I scratch them off and I actually like the power of writing them out. But what I've learned more and more is that the to-do list never goes away. It's always there. And so I've started to now chunk it out to here's the to-do list, but here's the 3 things that are going to get done tomorrow. And so before I go to bed at night, I look at the list and I make a commitment to what are the 3 things that are going to get done tomorrow. And sometimes what's on that list is things that is just my regular routine because I cannot let anything get in the way. So whether it be exercise or my physiotherapy or whatever that must do in the day. And that way I get to check it off. And sometimes I get to 5 things completed. And that's really changed my mental state. So my to-do list is actually digital and I can cross it off digitally, but what I'm going to do that day gets written down. So when I sit in front of the computer, it's right in front of me and it's front and center, and it's not the full, 100 list thing. It's just stuff. And that really helps me to stay focused on what is the most important stuff. And the other thing, John, that I've stopped doing is I don't check email first thing in the morning. That is stealing my best brain time. And I would rather have a conversation, create content, be creative, move my body. Those are way more important. The email starts at around 11 a.m. So anybody out there that's saying that's why. But it's a routine that's working. How about yourself?
No, I love it. Yeah, I know. I love that. Actually, that's a great tip. It's something I also learned from Damon John from Fubu. He's one of the personalities, the investors on Shark Tank. And he says, before you go to bed, kind of list out what it is you want to do the next day, or at least kind of think about it. Because what ends up happening too, the psychology behind it is your mind goes to work overnight. And sometimes you wake up with the answer to the question that you ask yourself. And I think that's so incredibly powerful if you give your mind the ability, and it's just asking the question, hey, tomorrow, this is what I got to do. Maybe, and I know you have an empowering question that you ask yourself every day. What's the one thing that I need to do to make this easy? What's the one thing I can do to make this fun? And what's the one thing I can do to make this, get it done quicker type of thing? Yeah, no, I love it.
Well, and the other question is who am I going to positively impact today? So if the list is like, pay my bills and like all this other boring stuff, that's not living my best life. So it has to have some sort of who am I going to positively impact today? And every day I look for 5 people that I'm going to positively impact. And it's a really fun game to play with yourself, because you then are looking for the good in people, who you want to connect with, who you want to meet. It's an amazing activity to do, and it keeps you out of your email.
Yeah, so don't check your email. I'm going to add one. Don't check your email, and don't check your social first thing in the morning.
Yes.
Right.
I break that rule sometimes.
Yeah. So do I. And I'm like, I really think there's something in TikTok that makes you addicted to it. And I'm like, I want to cancel my TikTok account, but I love creating content on it. So this morning I created a video on TikTok, or uploaded a video to TikTok. And I just let go of the social, let go of the emails, and just focus on you. And what I loved about what you said was, take some time for yourself, either for reflection, for, prioritizing what your day is going to look like, and really understanding what it is you want to do. And I think if you set yourself up first thing in the morning with that intention, your day is going to finish off a lot different. And then you're going to get to the end of the day, you checked off some stuff. It's like,
the key though is don't try to make the list in the morning. If you do that, you'll look in your email, you'll get all over the place. You have to do it the night before. And so, at the end of your day, just a quick, 3 minutes, that's all this is going to take to say what's most important that I get done tomorrow. And that way you're waking up and you've already made that commitment to yourself. So that's the key to this success pattern for me anyways.
Yeah, no, I love it. And then so I kind of do something similar in terms of what it is. Like, I have a whiteboard, and that's why I'm looking off to the side, and I put all my big things up there. But the thing I also look at is my overall arching goal for the year, or for this quarter. Actually, my overall arching goal for this quarter, and am I doing on my list that's contributing up to my overall goal?
That's
right?
John. That's fantastic.
And what I realized, and what I was realizing, 60 to 70% of the things that I was doing wasn't contributing up to that. Right. So one of the things I put a lot of emphasis on this year, especially in 2022, was in and around my health, taking care of my body, just really bringing myself to a really positive and strong state. That's for me, that was key this year. And the one thing I knew I needed to do is I needed to change what I was putting into my body, but I also needed to change how I was treating my body. So in terms of exercise and all those different things. And, my big goal was, go do an event, which is, to me, is, that's the milestone, right? It's not, it's just a milestone to something bigger and better. But at least I knew, my little small daily actions was leading up to that. Right. And I think about where I want to be in 2024. Like, who's thinking that far ahead? Right. I am. Because I want to do something, when I hit my big milestone of, I'm not going to say it, but when I hit my big milestone that's coming up in 2 years, there's an event that I want to compete in that I know is going to take a year and a half, 2 years of training and consistent practice to get there. So I think about what can I do today to get myself back into that future state, like to that future state of that competition.
You're not saying the event. What's the event that you're going to do?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the ultimate goal is doing a full Ironman.
Ooh, I love it.
I know. Even as I say that, I'm scaring myself. I'm like, you want me to swim for like 3.5 kilometers? Like, you want me to run a full marathon after cycling 160K or something? Yeah.
And what do you have to be right now to be an Ironman in your day-to-day activities?
Oh, yeah, I know. In my day-to-day activities, I got to make sure I put good nutrition into my body. And the other part is just exercising. And big part of what I started introducing today specifically, I was doing bits and pieces of it over the last couple of months, was just stretching, right? Like, we exercise and, stretching. What's stretching? Like, who stretches, right? Like, I'm not talking about yoga or anything like that, but just stretching and getting my body a little bit more flexible so I have less injury, so I can continue training even more, right? So, who I need to be today is somebody who really takes care of this, to be that person who stands, at the start line of this race, jumping into the water. I don't know if it's going to be Cozumel or Lake Placid or wherever in the world it's going to be, right? Like, you have to be a different type of individual to get there. But I got to be that individual today to make sure that I get the training in to get to that point. So, yeah, I know that's something I'm always thinking about. It's like, who do I want to be in the future and what do I need to do today? It's just kind of like what you said, right? Like, if I have all this stuff I need to do tomorrow, let's map it out today and just tie it to a bigger vision, right? And some corporations do it really well, some corporations don't, but they tie back to the bigger vision, right? That's and right. Why, as individuals, why don't we do that, right? Like, why don't we tie something back to a bigger vision? And what I find, it actually gives you more focus and it gives you more clarity in terms of what you need to do every day.
And it checks off, like you said, am I doing the things that are driving towards this goal, this vision of my life? And if the answer is no, then you got to change the to-do list. So I think that's the call to action today, right? Is you have a to-do list that's overwhelming you. How can you chunk it out? And how can you measure that it's measuring up to your overall life goal? And if you don't have a life goal, that's probably a journal option for you today.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm just kind of lost in it right now, and I'm like, I for those of you that are watching us, hey, I get to sit and stuff too, right? I'm listening to the conversation as we're having the conversation, and sometimes it's just that one thing. It's like, what do I need to journal out? What do I need to write? Yeah, and there might even be, go back and revisit what you put down, right? I think a lot of times we even forget what it is we wanted to do because we get so tied up with life.
I heard someone on a video. I'm sorry, I'm not giving the right person credit, but what they actually suggested to do now is to start writing all the stuff that you've accomplished this year, so that as you get closer to that, end of year and you're working towards your 2023, you have all of these resources and reasons and examples that you are good enough and you have been successful and you have success patterns. And then you're piggybacking off of that. So that's also a really good activity that I need to put it on my to-do list so that I'll do it. But I think that's a really good process.
Yeah. And the other part is, when you realize what it is you've been able to accomplish, because I think we forget, right? Like, as time passes and as we go through things, we forget what we accomplished. Make sure to give yourself a pat on the back for what you've done, right? Like, you deserve it. We don't celebrate. And actually, I know we've talked about this a few times, is we don't celebrate enough, right? We don't celebrate the good stuff that we've done. So, yeah, there's a bunch of different actions in there. So, Look at your to-do list. Is it tying back up to your bigger vision, which is one takeaway? Are you saying yes to the things that are going to help you get there? And then if you're not clear on what it is, go back and journal and write it down and really understand what it is you want. Or look back at where you've been earlier in the year, and are those things still true for you today? Right? Because it could be whatever that is, go back and revisit. And if you don't know what that is, then take some time and reflect on it. Where do you want to be at the end of 2022, and where do you want to be in 2023? I think that's incredibly important. And I know Heather and I, we're working on something that we're going to get out to you all soon. So keep an eye open for that. But we are at time. It's surprising how quickly 20 minutes goes. It's wow. But for the person that gave us a thumbs up, thank you for that. I appreciate it. One of the comments I saw yesterday, Heather, I don't know if you saw this, like somebody said there aren't enough thumbs to give you guys. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm so appreciative of that. So for those of you that check in with us and listen to us on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, thank you. We do have a special guest coming up this Friday, so you want to make sure you dial into that and check it out. But for today, I want to wish everybody a great one. And Heather, have yourself an awesome day and enjoy your drive.
You too, John. Bye, everyone.
Take care.